The night shift had a way of swallowing sound. The corridors of Jefferson High School echoed faintly with the hum of fluorescent lights, the kind that flickered every so often, as if trying to remind the darkness that it wasn't entirely in charge. Daniel Carter pushed his mop bucket along the linoleum floors with slow, deliberate strokes, his back bent in a posture that life had trained him into long before his bones had fully aged. He was 42 but carried himself like someone older, his shoulders broad and tired. His hands, though calloused from decades of work, were steady, deliberate and gentle in a way that seemed at odds with the strength they clearly held. The staff rarely saw him beyond the occasional nod in the hallway. To most, he was invisible, the janitor whose work was done after the classrooms had emptied. But to those who paid attention, to the teachers who sometimes stayed late grading papers, the few students who lingered longer than they should, Daniel was more than a man who cleaned. There was something quiet about him, a steadiness that drew people in when they dared to notice. He had been working there for 6 years, ever since his wife, Emily, passed away. It had been sudden, a heart condition that no one had caught until it was too late. One morning she was laughing with him in the kitchen, teasing him about burning toast again, and by evening he was a widower with a 7-year-old daughter who had just lost her mother. Life hadn't asked if he was ready, it had demanded, and he had answered with a resolve that surprised even him. Leela, now 13, was his anchor and his storm. She had Emily's eyes, so bright and curious, but she had inherited Daniel's quiet determination. At home, she often tried to carry more weight than her young shoulders should. She would fold laundry before he came home, leave notes on the counter reminding him not to forget his lunch, and sometimes, when she thought he wasn't looking, she would study his face as though making sure he wasn't breaking inside. Daniel knew the world didn't make it easy for men like him. Single fathers who worked jobs that kept them in shadows were rarely celebrated. He wasn't the kind of man who would be applauded on magazine covers or written about in parenting blogs. He was the man scrubbing gum off desks and replacing flickering bulbs so that children could come to school the next day without ever thinking about who had made the place livable again. And yet, he never let himself resent it. Every time he tightened his grip around the mop handle, he reminded himself he was tightening it for Lila, for the lunches he packed at 5 a.m., for the sneakers she had outgrown, for the art supplies she always asked for because she swore she'd be an artist one day. Every floor he polished was, in his mind, a step toward her dreams. One evening in late October, as the autumn wind rattled against the school windows, Daniel heard a faint sob echoing down the hallway. He paused, leaning on the mop. The sound wasn't one he could ignore. It pierced something deep inside him. Following it, he found a boy slouched against a locker, head in his hands, trying desperately to hide the fact that he was crying. "Hey," Daniel said softly, his voice carrying no authority, only concern. "You all right, son?" The boy startled, wiping at his face quickly, but the tears had already betrayed him. "Yeah, fine. Just leave me alone." Daniel crouched down, his knees protesting the movement. "Sometimes it helps to talk." "No judgment." The boy sniffled, reluctant, but eventually admitted, "My parents are splitting up. I don't a broken bar. I don't know where I'm gonna live. I don't know who's gonna want me." Daniel's chest tightened. He saw himself in that boy, saw the confusion and pain of losing something that felt permanent. He didn't offer platitudes. He didn't tell him everything would be okay, because Daniel knew sometimes life didn't get easier, it just shifted, and you learned how to carry it. Instead, he said, "Listen, a broken bar. When my wife died, I thought my daughter and I wouldn't make it. I thought we were done for. But what I learned, I see you're wanted. Even if it doesn't feel like it right now, you matter more than you know." The boy looked at him, eyes wide, as if the simple acknowledgement had given him permission to believe it. For the first time that evening, He nodded. After that night, word about Daniel spread quietly, not as gossip, but as stories whispered among students and teachers. The janitor who listened, the man who remembered names, the father who sometimes left a bag of extra snacks in the staff lounge just in case any kid forgot lunch. Slowly, he became more than background. Yet life, as it always did, tested him again. That winter, Leela came home with a notice about a school art competition. The prize was a scholarship to a summer program in New York, her dream city, her dream program. She begged him to let her enter. Daniel smiled, kissed her forehead, and told her to go for it. What he didn't say was that even if she won, he had no idea how he'd afford the travel costs, the supplies, the time off. Still, he encouraged her, because that was his job, and not to clip her wings, but to make sure she believed they could carry her. The weeks that followed were a blur of Leela sketching late into the night, her pencil scratching against paper while Daniel brewed extra coffee to keep himself awake beside her. He didn't understand half of what she was trying to capture on the page, but he understood her joy. That was enough. Then came the day of the competition. Leela's artwork, a portrait of her mother surrounded by blossoms, left the judges silent before they broke into applause. She won. The news should have been triumphant. Instead, Daniel felt the weight of reality pressing in. The scholarship covered tuition but not everything else. He stayed up that night staring at their worn kitchen table, wondering how much overtime he could take on, what corners of his own life he could cut away so Leela wouldn't have to. It was Leela who noticed his silence. One evening, she placed her small hand on his. "Dada broken bar, we'll figure it out." "You always do." Her faith broke something open in him. He realized then that his strength wasn't in never stumbling, but in showing her how to stand back up when he did. And then, in one of life's rare mercies, the community he had quietly poured into began pouring back. Teachers donated art supplies. Parents started a fundraiser. Even students pitched in, remembering the man who had been there for them when no one else noticed. By spring, Leela boarded a bus for New York, clutching her sketchbook like a passport to the future. Daniel stood on the curb, waving until she disappeared from view. His chest ached, but it was the kind of ache that came with pride, with love stretched across distance. That night, when he returned to Jefferson High and picked up his mop again, the corridors didn't feel so empty. They felt alive, as though every step he had taken or every floor scrubbed, every light replaced had led to this moment. Daniel Carter wasn't a man who would ever be in the spotlight. His name wouldn't be etched into history books. But in the quiet, in the unnoticed hours, he carried the world on his shoulders with gentle hands, raising a daughter, mending the invisible cracks in a community, reminding anyone who cared to see that strength didn't always roar. Sometimes, it whispered through acts of kindness, through sacrifices unseen, through the love of a father who refused to let go. And in that silence, Daniel discovered his greatest truth: humanity isn't measured by what the world applauds, but by the small mercies we give each other when no one's watching.